got a box of booze. I feel like I'm at a college party, but it's awesome.
Our parents rented us a hotel room.
Right? It's awesome.
In for the party? All right.
We can have we'll have the outtakes reel. I'll have my head right here in the camera. We'll start the video like this. And then is it on? I think it's on. It's recording. Okay, fantastic. Everybody find your zen, because here we go. Welcome to the Revenue Cloud Roundtable Special Dreamforce Edition. My name is John Garvins. I'm the owner and principal architect at Garvins Consulting, and we're here to talk about all things Revenue Cloud at Dreamforce 2025. We have an incredible crew here to discuss this with us today. I am the least among them, so without further ado, let me pass the mic over to Greg for a quick introduction. Also, my fun fact, we're doing name, title, company. Fun fact, as a reminder to everybody here. My fun fact is I once made Jeff Bezos laugh.
That's fantastic.
It's a tough one to follow. I'm Greg Fiorindo. I'm the VP of Revenue Cloud, covering our commercial, industrial, consumer, and energy customer segments. I've been with Salesforce for 20 years, over 2 stints. A fun fact for me, I worked in a closed Teamsters shop during a summer out of college, and I set the line for most lines picked in a day.
All right, my name is Josh Pearson. I've been with Pierce Washington for a couple of years now, 15 years in the space. Senior director within our Salesforce practice, and I predominantly focus on Revenue Cloud, scaling capabilities, methodology, process. Work really close with Tiff. And fun fact, I used to get the compliment that I look like Aaron Rodgers, and I used to be proud about that.
I love the two used tos.
That's perfect. John Larkine, Director of Innovation in Pierce Washington. My role is really to set the North Star for companies that are looking to really innovate on the Salesforce platform and really help them with that vision setting aspect. Fun fact about me would be I used to play the harpsichord back when I was a child.
Oh!
Competed in a lot of harpsichord competitions.
Wait, harpsichord competitions?
There
Yes.
are harpsichord competitions?
There are harpsichord competitions.
Such as
Such as the Junior Bach competition in the East Bay here.
Oh,
So,
wow.
There's probably footage out there.
yep, there definitely is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fun, yeah.
All right, I'm going to pass it to Robbie next.
Hi, my name is Ravi Maturi, owner of Eman Squared Inc. In the ERP space and code to cash for the last 25 years with PeopleSoft, Oracle, and Salesforce CPQ for the last 8 years. Enjoying the journey and keep doing it better. Fun fact is recently I hiked at 18,500 feet and survived, and I'm still here.
Hey.
In the Himalayas, right?
Was that?
In the Himalayas, yes?
Yeah, Tibet and Manasaro, Mount Kailash. So it's a life-changing trip. And back and surviving, and with the esteemed guests here.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. My name is Cameron Gilbertson. I am an accidental technologist. Grew up in Chicago. Ended up doing Salesforce. I use the Aloha skin, if you guys know what that is, back in the day. Got into lead to revenue many years ago. Worked with Micro for many years. I am a Denver adult native. And have a tremendous amount of respect for what you just said. That's really cool. I'm an old ski bum, and I'm psyched to be here.
I feel like you have the most radio voice of us all.
It's very soothing.
It is. Just say more. Say more.
I think I'm with child.
I am.
If only I had something to say.
I'm Tiffany Devlin-Dry. I'm a lead architect at Pierce Washington, and my fun fact is that I am a citizen of, and I hold passports for 3 different countries.
Those countries are?
The US, Canada, and the UK.
3? Very cool.
I'm Jessica Roundy. I'm working independent at Roundy Cloud Consulting. I am a solution architect for Revenue Cloud. Been working in that space for 7 years. And fun fact about me, I am about to live a lifelong dream of being an archaeologist for 2 weeks. I'm going to go to the UK on Saturday, and there's an archaeology dig that you can, it's crowdfunded, so if you donate a certain amount, they'll let you come dig with them for a couple weeks. And so I almost changed my major to archaeology in college until I found out how much they made, and I was like, so then here I am in the software space, and I love it. And so, yeah, that's my fun fact.
Amazing.
Awesome. Micah
Going to
Gerger.
my homeland.
Oh, yes.
I'm Micah Gerger, founder and CTO of Blue Robot Digital, Revenue Cloud and RevOps consulting company, based out of Southwest Florida. Fun fact, I have written 3 feature-length screenplays and sold one and optioned one in Hollywood. So.
Amazing. I had no idea.
Wow. That was really cool. All right. Thank you for sharing that. I had no idea about most of these things. Harpsichord? Bro. All right.
Next RevOps Roundtable, he's got
Yeah, 100%.
Seriously.
Exactly.
Like you
we have
win.
high expectations.
So I think one of the great things about Dreamforce this year that all of us will nod our heads to is the fact that there were 3 times as many Revenue Cloud sessions as last year. We're finally getting love. That's great. We're no longer the redheaded stepchild put in the corner.
orphans.
This is great. We all went and did different things this week. We saw different things. We talked to different people. And I've already gotten people reaching out to me knowing about this roundtable that we're going to do in a Dreamforce, and they're very eager to learn what are your biggest takeaways from Dreamforce. We're all going to have a different takeaway. Doesn't have to be one, could be a couple of big things, but what are you most excited about? What did you find surprising? What was most interesting or made you curious at Dreamforce 2025? Okay, yeah, anything yet?
Absolutely. So most of my Dreamforce was spent in customer meetings and SICs and whatnot. And I think the thing that was the most eye-opening is just the vision that these companies have. They come and they see so much at Dreamforce, their eyes are wide, but these things can be done. And I think that as it relates to RevCloud specifically, I've been in the space for 10 plus years, and we can finally say yes to use cases that we were just stuck under the managed package of CPQ. Our customers have been asking for this type of innovation for a long time, and we've spent, pick a term, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months getting our pricing and packaging. We can't use it anywhere but in direct sales, and now we see a lot of customers really exposing that to partners, exposing it to contractors, internal sellers, their own applications, all the things we've heard use cases around for years, and companies are actually doing it now. I think that was the most exciting for me.
Fantastic. Who else? Tiff?
Yeah, so I think the most exciting thing is to just see, again, you said that there are 3 times as many.
3 times as many. The page that I created had over 50 sessions, events, parties on it.
See, I think it's more than 3 times, because I didn't
was a
feel like
lot.
there was much before this year, but this year I sorted by RevCloud sessions, and I was like, oh my god, did my filter even take, because there's so many sessions. So yeah, it's really exciting to see RevCloud get some love. I think the biggest thing that I am taking away from this Dreamforce is, you'll appreciate this, but manufacturers are really getting some love. Manufacturers, when I started at Pierce Washington 3 years ago, it was a pretty niche space, and we had to work to get the software to meet
Work.
the use case. Yes, exactly. But now Salesforce has expanded their offering to really encompass the manufacturing client, and that is in terms of performance, like more lines on a quote, more configurator, like the software is really built for manufacturers, and that's very exciting because that is our bread and butter and where my heart is. So, yeah.
Sure. This year at Dreamforce, I thought was a complete change from how I've seen Dreamforce in the past. And the reason I'll say that is because obviously this Dreamforce was all about Agentforce.
What?
Were you guys here? They renamed everything to Agentforce. So I think that brought an interesting perspective I think a lot of companies, when they go through like revenue transformations in the past, when they were installing CPQ, maybe have done it for, better data for the CFO, better data for the organization. I can report on it, I can see that data, what's going on. But all of a sudden this year, there was a new lens on it. It was like, how do I get that data into a unified data model so that the agents can take advantage of it? And so that was this whole new value prop that I saw for Revenue Cloud, and I see the Revenue Cloud product management like really attaching to this. Like we're seeing, the APIs for Revenue Cloud already MCP enabled. We're seeing like all of that data being, the standard connector bringing standard data from CRM into Data Cloud. So it's a next level sophistication of those Revenue Cloud, but I'm seeing like that's now one of the main reasons people are starting to be like, oh, I've got my marketing data in Data Cloud, I got my accounts, I got maybe, but like where's my quoting data, where's my configuration data, where's my like middle office like contract data? And that seems to be this hole that like people were really talking about this year.
I was very curious about like things that I was curious about. Like most of my work has been on the core, configuration, asset management piece of it. And what I found piqued my interest in Dreamforce was the bells and whistles that come like outside of that. Where I haven't had a project yet that requires that, and so learning about it and figuring out what I can do to help my clients like expand and better use the whole platform. I think that is the great value of like RCA, is that it's all on platform now, and so there's going to be fewer integration pains to downstream systems and things like that, and the order orchestration piece of being able to do fulfillment management from Salesforce is very intriguing to me. I also went to some sessions about Stripe and Tableau Next, and I felt like those things are value adds that I'd love to get more acquainted with.
Yeah, amazing.
I was thinking about it too as I was listening to the stories here. So I'm a first-time Dreamforce attendee. Been in the Salesforce space for so long, but I've never prioritized it. And so outside looking in, just knowing that all of you have probably been here several times, and seeing, Agentforce, AI, and Revenue Cloud played up as much as it was, could have called it Revenue Cloud.
It's Revenue Cloud.
I mean, it's really was all about Revenue Cloud. And
Yeah.
Yes.
so like my observation, just from my own personal journey, seeing what's going on in marketplaces, it feels like the rate of adoption for AI is actually happening about 5 times faster than we're all ready for. And I already feel like I'm behind. I think about when I met John and we just started talking about AI, year and a half ago, and Agentforce just being a newer product and people getting used to it, to now where any client, manufacturer, or company not already considering where this fits into their roadmap is a little behind the curve. And that was one of my big things that hit me in the face when I came this week.
Yeah, within a year.
Yeah, within 1 year.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen in 6 months. So, interesting.
Yeah, I think I had a similar observation. I think I agree with a bunch of what you all just said. I think, last year and even at TDX, there are a lot of, demos and AI use cases where it's just, a salesperson typing in chat and, hey, go create some stuff for me. Things that you can do with Flow, but you could do a little bit easier in a conversation. And now, yes, with all of the pretty heavy-handed Agentforce first marketing, I think that has turned into a lot more creative and interesting and value-added AI use cases. Yes, with the data on the platform, everyone's thinking about that now, but also it's not just dumb automations that you could kind of probably pull off the flow, but things that actually are going to make life easier, add efficiency and value for an organization. And even in the roadmap session too, it was really great to see at the end some more admin and troubleshooting, internal maintenance friendly applications of Agentforce where, hey, looks like there's an error on the screen. Do you want me to take a look at this? And then, as a user, you could either go try and submit a ticket to IT like you would today, or Agentforce can do it for you, and also probably diagnose, at least get close to diagnosing the problem. things like that, are massive, and I think it shows Salesforce is really listening. Yes, like you were saying, Greg, the advancements from CPQ, there are use cases you can say yes to that you couldn't before, but also, with a nascent product like Revenue Cloud and a lot of challenges out in the field in this kind of early phase of like grinding through implementations and getting live, the administration and maintenance and troubleshooting piece is naturally not the first thought, and it's really been great to see that is in demos, which means it's becoming the front of mind for real life use cases.
It was discussed a little bit among a few of you so far, but I think one of the things that's really standing out, this being able to say yes to things. What I really think people need to take away from Dreamforce this year, just the state of Revenue Cloud, is just how massive this is. We've all seen the ChatGPT generated thought leadership posts on AI about it's not just whatever, it's a game changer for all that stuff. But it truly is. I mean, promotion management, fulfillment, all of these processes that are CPQ adjacent,
Yes.
but weren't quite ERP yet for some of them, and then having the ability to address those use cases, that middle office that you're talking about, contracts, fulfillment, promotion management, all of these things we've had to build workaround solutions for years are now part of the core product, and that's really important. Which leads to another thing, I've been kind of known for the career aspect of this stuff too, and I've talked to a lot of people about Salesforce careers. For those who are CPQ people or CPQ adjacent people, the opportunity that I foresee over the next 5 to 10 years is massive, which brings me to two things. If you're at all concerned about your CPQ career, don't be. There's still plenty of CPQ work to do for many years as customers migrate from CPQ to whatever we're going to call it next.
RLM.
Go back to
RLM.
Back to RLM.
RLM,
Yeah.
RCA, ARM.
Yeah, revenue airplane, who
I've got
knows?
some ideas.
But that creates opportunities. So the CPQ people, the principles haven't changed. You're still selling products and complex deals to other businesses. That hasn't changed. The tooling is different, the tactics are different, the technology is different, the principles remain constant. The adjacent processes, people will be able to build a full career on their ability to build out DRO, their ability to build out Salesforce contracts, the ability to build out, maybe you're the configuration wizard with constraint models. It's such a big product now. Pick your niche within that as a career management kind of a strategy, and then you're the person people go to for this piece of Revenue Cloud, because it's not just they're quoting whatever, it's all of this stuff. And then as billing evolves and develops and matures, that will also be big. And then on the ISV side, we have a whole cottage industry of solutions that are going to be built upon this new revenue platform. Salesforce being Force.com platform for general database stuff, and now we have the equivalent for revenue. Is we have a revenue platform that can then be added onto for industry-specific use cases that extend even more niche than even the Salesforce industry's idea. So I think that's really important, which then leads to a problem, but a corresponding solution is there's a massive talent shortage right now. We need people to do all of this. We need people to develop these skill sets.
We need bodies.
We need bodies. We need people to shovel coal. That's what we need. And so if you are a Salesforce professional who's concerned at all about maybe AI taking your job or something like this is a skill that is difficult and complex to master. It takes a long time. It's really hard. It can be stressful. However, because it is hard, it means that your creativity, your ingenuity, your innovation is going to be valued in the marketplace, and you'll be able to build a strong career with this product, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, seriously, I don't, I'm gonna make one comment this whole conversation. I don't actually worry about being employed. And I think that's a huge gift,
It
the
is.
space we're in. I really do not worry about being employed. I know I have a job, I'll always have a job, because I understand these models. I think about this all day, every day. And so you're just saying, like, you know, this is a good space to be part of. It's really important, right? It drives the business back on most businesses. It's very complicated. It's only getting more complicated with the SEC Series 6 stuff. Usage models are really, really difficult mentally, right? I mean, I don't get them, to be honest with you, right? So,
That's why we hired
be part of
people,
this,
right?
right? Be part of this. There's no AI. You are not going to get replaced by an AI bot doing what we do for a living.
Yep.
I would agree, but I think, we've talked about this in other Rev roundtables too. That is all true for people who have a certain mindset. And there is a massive evolution that's happening right now in terms of how we all need to be approaching, our implementations and approaching how we're interacting with clients and how we're driving programs forward. And it's leveraging AI, it's driving value. It's not just we've been in some debates too in some Slack channels about recently about disruption versus instability versus shifting back away from everything should be point and click and admin friendly to everything can be custom. And I think we all need to be evolving our mindsets as well. And so people who have that kind of technologist mindset, yes, are going to be employed for the foreseeable future. But a lot of people who are still in the everything should be point and click world, that's not the direction everything is. And I did see several demos where you can just vibe code it. So
I was just gonna ask that. Who's vibe coding? Who's vibe coding in this room? Anybody? Copilot.
Yeah.
What are you guys using? And have you tried it on the Revenue Cloud yet?
Not yet.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of agent building. Basically, I was a AI skeptic and Agentforce skeptic coming into the Salesforce, basically because how the Salesforce is evolving. But whatever I have seen is really amazed by the way unstructured data, some of the demo booths, what they were doing, and the use cases I presented to them for the revenue still there. It's kind of evolving. It takes some time, but some of the traceability and some of the tools that we're building, that is, you can trace back to where the tokens are being used and all the consumption and some of the models we're talking about, the tokenization, how much tokenization, and we play a big role there because we from representing the customers from an SI perspective, how can you optimize them and how can you make the solutions need to do in such a way that you cannot just build a solution because the AI has to see the model in MCPs, where you are doing it and where you are storing it. The storage also is a big factor because you cannot just, limited storage and all those aspects come into play. But Salesforce is making a big inroad and going slow on that aspect because the governance and all those aspects. But outside it's catching up, but there is still evaluation on those. And I think what I saw in the Revenue Cloud is kind of ARM or whatever the name, that's catching up and kind of it's an evaluation, probably takes a couple of more releases. At the time, I think there will be a synchronization and AI will play a role more. And probably what we design has to take into account more from a documents and some of the other aspects of that, which is what is happening right now.
Real quick, in true podcast fashion, I need to take a quick commercial break to thank our sponsors for this podcast, Pierce Washington. Pierce Washington. We are here at the Pierce Washington Executive Suite at Dreamforce 2025. They've been gracious to give us this space to bring this to you. If you are a Revenue Cloud customer, in particular, if you're a Revenue Cloud customer that needs and are a manufacturer, talk to Pierce Washington. They've got some of the best in the business. Mr. Larikine here will be happy to talk to you about any products. And Tiffany Devlin Dry and Pearson. Yes? I got it. Yes. All right. I remembered. Fantastic. Are happy to talk to you and help you through this journey, as are the rest of us. Also, if you're just curious about how the product works or need more information, you can also funnel it to Greg here. He's happy to help you. We're back to our program. Here we go.
Yeah, I was just gonna follow up there on some of this, new career and new aspect in this mindset, and I just wanted to, kind of talk about this CML as well. I know it's a new language in this world, but
What does it stand
one,
for, John?
yes. So
Did you say
CML.
CML or
Constraint
CLM?
CML for CLM.
Constraint management.
CPQ, QCP.
So this is
CML?
the constraint modeling language, which
The
is the
constraint modeling
new
language, right.
language that is supporting the constraint engine within Revenue Cloud Advanced or Agent Revenue Management. And I just wanted to pick up on this. I think there's a mindset shift, right? I think we all are working through the initial implementations of the CML language, learning the new language. And I think one thing that we've kind of done, at least at Pierce Washington, is we've built an agent that can help with CML writing. So it's, we tackle these problems by using AI itself, right? And so, how can we accelerate our learning of this new technology by using AI, right? And it's not just AI to run the technology. It's, how can we actually research, learn, do this. But I will just say there's a lot of experts in this room who write online, and my AI picks up a lot of what we all say. So you got to be careful of those sounding rooms that might reverberate.
Kick them out of the Slack. We don't want your AI here.
You're out of the friends group. No, I mean you're exactly right, and that's a really cool use case, especially with the new language. And I think you asked about vibe coding before, and I think we all have people who are developers. Tiff, developer. Ravi, a lot of us are developers. We kind of look down on the vibe coding thing a little bit because it feels too ad hoc, it feels too loose, and I think a lot of times it is and it will be. I think it's great that it will enable people who are have less of a developer mindset and less developer skills to be able to do more technical work.
Yes.
But I think there's a lot of caveats that aren't really being talked, conditions, qualifiers that aren't really being talked about around that, that can produce a lot of risk. But I think what I would say especially for all of the people who are less technical, and to your point about using agents and AI to improve how we're leveraging these tools, is like, for me, I don't really vibe code, but I use the AI to explain questions that I have, to work through issues that I have, to educate to become a better developer while I'm interacting with it and building. So I think that's what I would recommend for a lot of people. Go vibe code, go tinker. Tinkering is a huge part of any technologist's time, especially people on the solution side, people on the delivery side. Wherever you are, you should be tinkering, and that's where vibe coding is really good, especially if you are vibe coding and then interacting with the AI on why would I build it this way, talk to me about other approaches that would make sense, is there a more efficient or scalable way to write this, that type of stuff, and you will level up your skills really quickly.
100%, right?
Yeah.
And
Try stuff
and
and
I
break
wanna
things.
emphasize that point I was saying earlier. Listen, there are not enough warm bodies on this planet right now to run the planet.
Yeah.
It's
Aren't there
really-
8 billion people here? on
Yeah,
this
We're at
planet?
8 now, yes.
Right? So if you like this stuff, this is me.
Yeah.
He's way smarter than me. If you like this stuff and you want to do this, do it. Do it. It's a good career. You'll be paid well. You'll be entertained. You'll always be solving new problems. Jump into the game. That's my number one recommendation to anybody who's even thought about being an architect. If you like it at all, do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To the vibe coding thing, it's a really great starting point. It's a great way to learn all of these things. We could think through via metaphor though. On the caution side, think of your vibe coding as cruise control. I love cruise control in my car. I use it all the time. It keeps the safe distance between me and the car in front of me. It brings me to a complete stop in a traffic jam, and I just have to tap the gas pedal to go again. It's fine, but I'm not going to take a nap in the driver's seat. Don't fall asleep at the wheel. You can use these tools. They're fantastic. They can save you some mental fatigue and things like that. However, don't forget that you're ultimately driving the car, and that if you're not paying attention, you're going to go off the road.
We're not at the Waymo level yet. Is that-
Yeah, we're not at Waymo. There are no
You're,
Waymo implementations of Revenue
it's
Cloud.
It's first draft, right? It's
Yeah.
first draft.
Vibe coding, Jessica, you dig?
Yeah.
Let's see here. Let's talk about a couple of roadmap items.
Wait, can I say something?
Yeah,
about vibe
please.
coding? Okay, so I feel like for developers, it's always been a standard practice to find some like template code that you can start out with, right? Whether it's in open source or whether you've done something for a certain project previously. And I feel like vibe coding gets you to the point where, okay, I have my template.
Yep.
And then you still need the human to go in there and go, okay, is this gonna work for what I'm doing? Or is this scalable? Is this gonna handle the volume that I know this client needs? So it definitely has its place and it's very valuable, but it doesn't quite get you all the way there.
Copy, paste, and pivot. When you think about the roadmap, things here, I want to get specific. What core functions of Revenue Cloud that you saw during the keynotes, during the road mapping sessions, got you most excited, and why?
I have a very simple answer to that. 15,000 quote lines. on a
Hell
word.
yeah! 15,000 quote lines.
Like,
What?
that's it.
What?
That's the whole thing.
That's
That's
whole
pretty much-
answer.
yeah.
That's the whole
Right.
answer. But
I would
will
drop
say-
my mic right now, but I don't want to break it.
I mean, that's totally it.
We pay good money for that.
I pay good money for the mic.
I will say though, I have an open question to anybody at Salesforce to answer. When Salesforce says we're going to support 15,000 lines on a quote, how much automation
Mm-hmm.
is on those 15,000 lines, right? So like we could put 15,000 lines in a quote and have no pricing procedure, no automation, no flows, no quote line
Derived
trigger,
price.
No business logic. It's just a- it's just a
Exactly.
contract price, right?
Right, if you
Yeah.
have 15,000 lines in a quote and all you're using for pricing is a price book entry, then fine, like, that's great and it's a definite step in the right direction, but also it doesn't really open the door to a lot of use cases.
What's the
So-
total transaction size?
Exactly. So my question is, okay, if we're gonna have 15,000 lines in a quote, first of all, I'm just excited that that is even being spoken about, and that is a goal of Salesforce. Like, bravo, clap, standing ovation, like, love it. But of course, I have technical questions because I know if I do something silly and bad practice, and I do something like an API call out to SAP for pricing for every single quote line on the quote, well, I know Salesforce is not going to support 15,000 lines in a quote, which is
If
understandable.
they pay enough money, they might.
But yeah, I've had some pretty big clients and that didn't work. But anyway, but so where's the line, right? Like we have on one side of a gradient scale, we have just price book entry. On the far end of the gradient scale, we have one API called per quote line, which we know is not acceptable. So where in that spectrum is the line? Like where can you support 1,000 lines on the quote today, which is what's being communicated is
Which is
over
still damn
15,000
good.
lines. It is very good, and it is for someone coming from however many implementations of Steelbrick, it's like, whoo, thank you Lord, like someone has been listening. This is fantastic. But again, of course, being the technical person, I do have the technical question of like, what does that mean? How much can we do on a quote line and it still be supported in those metrics of 1,000 or 15,000?
Just on that point, I think another consideration that I have become more aware of late is just that the level, like there is no, there's very little knowledge that we have of what best practice is so far.
Yes.
Because there's just not
Practice.
Yeah, practice. There you go. So I think that is still yet to be defined, and I think in use cases where there's a lot of customization, that's where we're going to hit up against the blockers, and we're going to figure out, oh, well, we have to do this differently, And so I think with implementing RCA is going to be, I guess, like in this phase where it's still maturing and still growing, there's going to be a lot of like kind of discovery and a lot of very close communication with Salesforce as well on these blockers so that we can develop a best practice.
Yeah, on that basically, in the steel brick, it's always black box. You don't have control. There's nothing you can do. Before it goes in or comes out, then you can do something. But right now, that guardrails are not there, good or bad. So where you can, if anything, then you take your API and you frame it up. So that's a good and bad thing because it's more of API oriented than even for anything you need to use the API kind of thing, But that's kind of a limitation as well as For our clients, it's more of customization. They have the cycle, the life cycle warrants a kind of a lot of changes. So that's a good possibility, and there is a scope for a lot of players like us. I always say that there is more to kind of build around to make it easy. Whether it's a product search or some of those things, any kind of out of box, you can extend it and build around it and come with some of that. That's a great possibility which we don't have before. Always like a black box with a regular answer, we cannot touch it and nobody can touch it. That's as a managed package. So I like that the direction and the journey and possibilities coming out there. It's matter of just getting it stable a little bit, so that it's you don't question like whether it's my thing or it's a bug from the system. That kind of still variability is there. But once we pass that, then I think sky's the limit.
Yeah, please.
I'll
Trying to recruit another member of our roundtable.
I'll take one. I think there's actually two pieces of the latest release that I thought were really pushing forward. One, they showed a little bit more on the RCB side during the keynote speech about how having like a payment portal now that is like fully integrated with RCB. There was a little bit of connecting the dots we had to do before. Like there was Pay Now, there was Salesforce Payments, there was Salesforce Revenue Cloud Billing, and there was kind of a overlap Venn diagram of what those offered. And so now I see that kind of unified vision coming out. The other one that we didn't see on the keynote that I think came in the latest release, which is really powerful, is this promotion management. Salesforce has had promotion management in Commerce Cloud, I think also in Loyalty Experience Cloud, as well as what we could have always done inside CPQ, which was a customization of CPQ, and usually a bad one. So now to see kind of like a single promotion engine starting to be refined and seeing it kind of, I know there's a lot around how this interacts with marketing and how these AI can build the promotions. Like there's a real framework that we have now that I'm excited about. I'm surprised we didn't see it at the keynote this year though. So that was one thing I kind of was like, wow, like I was kind of looking forward to that.
It's still too early.
Maybe it's a little too early. Yeah. So we'll look for next release.
Just a quick input on the promotions, on talking about Revenue Cloud Beyond Core. I just have to say, on behalf of all Steelbrickers, it feels really good to be part of the family.
Cool. Welcome back.
That's right. Thank
Come
you.
join us.
Greg, you were going to say something?
I would like to say something. Yeah, the thing I'm most excited about in the roadmap, I've been dreaming about this since Salesforce acquired Cloud Craze, which is now B2B Commerce. And it's the convergence, the actual product convergence between Revenue Cloud and Commerce Cloud.
Yes.
Greg, you're reading
Yes.
my mind. I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, I remember after a drink or two at Dreamforce 2017, one single product catalog, one pricing engine, all monetization models, right? One time, complex configuration, usage, subscription, all routes to market, whether that's commerce, whether it's direct sales, whether it's indirect sales. And if anybody saw product-led growth, another great example, I co-presented with Ozinga here. Ozinga's a cement company, and the use case that Revenue Cloud enabled was a consumer to come to a consumer-grade website, plug in their address, Google Maps zooms in, they draw a polygon around the driveway, the tennis court, wherever they want to lay a patio. And depending on what materials you're using, the unit of measure needs to change based on what you measured.
Was that they're in Chicago?
They're in Chicago.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really cool use case.
Yeah, and so instead of a contractor going and spending $250 to go visit the site and do the bid and the estimation, go back, type it in. Right? These are 5-person companies, 6-person companies that install concrete and pavers and you name it. The consumer gets a price in real time. A lead goes to the contractor in real time. And the contractor has a co-branded proposal that it's their logo, it's a shareable link in social channels. And so it occurred to me as I was speaking with them, articulating their implementation, that the user experience is truly what your imagination. The limit is your imagination, and that is just incredible for this agentic age that we're
and that's a space too, and there's a whole bunch of other variations. Like I'm in Florida, pool building is huge, and you've got gutters companies, and all of those types of businesses are businesses where today you have them come out, and they're like, they take a walk around, and then they ask you some questions, and then 2 weeks later, you're like, are you gonna give me a quote? And then you get a couple others to, obviously play them all against each other, but somebody gets you a quote, and then you wait for a couple of days, and you're like, all right, I guess I'll just go with this one, because I'm not gonna wait for another couple of weeks for these people to get the quote at the door. So having that type of experience, it's an absolute game changer. They're gonna win so much more business and lose so much less on the competitive side. So yeah, there's some really cool use cases that are opening up on that front too. And I think so. You stole one of mine. You stole the other 15,000 lines. I'm very excited about both.
I'm like, I've got nothing else
We're
to
so
say, man.
happy
I'm done.
Okay.
We still love you.
I can still be excited about 15,000 lines. And I have this, what are the variables that drive that? I think is a great question. I think I'm really excited about a lot of the CLM stuff too. The CLM, Salesforce contracts, was a little slow to the game. I think Don Fernando's had a great vision, and that product has come a long way in like 2 to 3 releases. And the contracts AI, I think, is a pretty understated value. There's so many customers that I've worked with where you build out these great product configuration processes and sophisticated pricing, and you get a great approvals process. And then it gets to contracts.
Document looks like shit.
And is anybody here a lawyer?
Sits there for.
Is anybody in this room a lawyer?
Thankfully, no.
In a parallel life.
We'd probably get in trouble.
God bless you.
Yeah.
My brother's a lawyer. God bless it, man.
Yeah,
Lawyers,
the process
a real pain in the
dies.
ass. It's the last mile, right? I mean, I think that, this is, Mike and I have talked about for years, but for me, the CLM, OCR, obligation management, the ability to actually take language blocks and digitalize them upstream, downstream, it's gonna finish the whole solution. That's really how I look at it. And there's been years where we're implementing CPQ and lead management and then back office stuff, but there's still the legal team that can't figure out what their obligations are.
Well, and they're among the most expensive resources internally. So optimizing the amount of time that they're spending doing reviews, having them focus on de-risking, redlining, all that kind of stuff, I think is hugely valuable. It's maybe less sexy than some of the other stuff.
Well,
but I
just
think
being lawyers,
it's
too. That's part of it.
Yeah.
It's their job, right?
Absolutely.
They want to make sure nobody gets sued.
Yeah.
But it slows the whole thing down, right? And so having that ability to actually connect the dots is fantastic. Really exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, so there's that, and then I'll say for the interoperability too. That's something that has been on the roadmap for 4 years or so now, and we're this close. So I know, shout out to my friends who are grinding it out on Commerce RCA implementations right now. But in the next 2, 3, 4 months, it's gonna get a lot easier. It is a huge priority for that product team, and there are a lot of really bright people
I
focused
am
on it,
super
so.
excited about that, to be honest with you, for sure.
Where, if you could talk to the product team, who's wonderful, we love you all, where would you like to see, is there anything specific that you're going, I love this, it's not quite, could we have more of this? Are there any other areas where you think, oh man, it'd be really great if we could get, so here's mine.
Why are you looking at me?
I don't know, because you know what you're talking about and I don't. Optional checkbox.
I'm hunting down
On quote lines and quote line groups.
Yes, please.
That's a pretty big thing. It's on every client I've ever worked with pretty
What did
much.
you say?
The optional checkbox from CPQ.
Oh,
Good,
yes.
better, best options. I just want to include the best option in my pipeline. I exclude the other 2. If I generate it, I don't want to have to mess around with it later. That would be
You can do that.
huge. Oh, you can do that?
Yeah, we can do that.
Good, better, best. Are you talking about JMs?
So-
Scenario builder?
No.
I
but
might be
I'm
corrected.
saying
That's
there,
good too.
I'm saying there are ways of accomplishing that. It's not an out of box thing, but you can use pricing procedures to filter in how and when you're pricing certain lines. You could have an attribute or a field that's flagged, and then you can exclude that from one of the pricing
Right, but it's a
mechanisms.
customization.
But it's
You're-
customization.
You're right,
Yeah.
and I think that the great thing about RCA is that RCA/ARM/ whatever is that we actually we can look into the black box, like you were saying earlier, Robbie. Like the steel brake package was all black box. The total field was
Yeah.
whatever the total field was, and that was it. But to your point, like we can create our own optional checkbox, and we can roll up what we want to have in that actual total field. So,
That's very consequential. It means a lot.
yeah.
We're trying, the old solution was
John.
like very black
Grab that
box,
other one over.
Yes.
right? You couldn't do things. Now it's like whatever you want to do, you can do. That makes sense, right?
Which one
So
is
you're
this?
free of the code.
Yeah.
Which one is it? Is it by the
Oh, wait, he wants the one in the back, not the right. Yeah.
Are you talking to me, right?
I didn't know which one I had, so I just slammed the rest of what I had.
I'm sorry, we're
But I
having a
think-
different conversation.
Wine. Sorry,
Yeah, wine.
It's important.
Too much wine.
But
Pick the right
I think that's probably maybe for me it's the most important part of the whole migration to RCA. And I mean, Mike educated me a lot on the back end of it. I mean, my mind's just going like, wow, like all the issues that used to be problems are not issues anymore. It's just about whatever you want to design. You've got the tool set, right? Go make it happen.
Yep.
Yep.
And I know it's growing. I know it's young, right? It's really a technology, but I'm super excited about RCA. I gotta be honest with you. You know, it reminds me of the old days of a different company that I won't say out loud in this podcast, but it reminded me of that potential. Like it's gonna.
Yeah, the
it's
green
happening,
one?
right?
Yeah.
It's, I mean, I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited about it.
There's one feature that I would say. So today we have favorites in the configurator, but we don't have favorites in the quote lines.
Favorites would be good.
And
Yes.
Yeah.
that is something.
People love favorites.
Yeah, like I do feel like we could customize it. We can build like a custom object to store some stuff and push it in. But like really having some favorites that maybe even tied to the configuration favorites might be a really good
I'm pretty sure
place.
there's an Agentforce use case there too.
Yeah, exactly. Agents for everything.
So in case the
Right.
product team is listening, one more thing that I would add on to the favorites
Oh, they're listening.
is
Yeah.
I have had
Check this.
many requests from clients to have company-wide stored favorites.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
the way
yes.
that Steelbrick does favorites and the way that we're doing favorites now with RCA is all individual users.
Right.
But there are common configurations company-wide, yes, that a central person or a central team is perfectly happy to manage.
Sales
if
ops,
it-
rev ops.
Exactly,
Yeah.
as long as it would speed up the jobs of
Or headless
the
agents.
salespeople, so.
Right?
Yeah. And it will, in the
You know
agents, if
what,
you
I
had
don't care if we're
favorites of
human or
common,
AI,
most common.
I just want it to be faster,
Yeah.
that's all, yeah.
Yeah, if you had favorites of most common configurations, you tell an agent, hey, add this favorite.
Yeah.
Done. Here's your quote.
Favorite combination.
Yeah.
I think for me, this might be small, but I would like direct context mapping from the order to the asset, because right now you have to
Oh yeah.
you have to do the
Through the
you have to-
asset action source.
asset action source, and then do like a flow to roll that up to the asset record.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a pain, so I think that would be a great boon, to have that.
So, I guess to wrap this up, I have two more scenarios that I want to give quick advice to customers. Okay, so here's our opportunity. You're a Salesforce customer. You're watching this. Thank you very much. Also, the wine was also sponsored by Pierce Washington.
Pierce Washington.
Pierce Washington wine. We're gonna start a vineyard. It'll be great. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. Thank you. Pierce Washington, especially if you're a manufacturer, go talk to Larikand. All right. You're welcome. Do I get a commission for this?
Absolutely.
I feel like
I'm getting free wine. It's fine.
the more
It's fine.
wine we give him, the more he says first wine. So I'm just gonna like keep on like.
Get the bottle.
Shit. My plan has been foiled. All right. So, two big scenarios that I want to get quick advice for Salesforce customers. First, you're on something else spreadsheets, some other system, whatever. You're thinking about moving into Revenue Cloud, but you're a net new Revenue Cloud situation. And then the second scenario is going to be, I'm an existing CPQ customer thinking about Revenue Cloud. What should I consider in both of those scenarios? So let's first go with
I'm not sure you can afford that answer.
your net new CPQ, or your net new Agentforce revenue management customer. What do you consider if you're net new?
I don't want to get him in, but for me, right, it's follow the acronym a little bit, right? It's just the technology doesn't change that much. How's your product catalog, right? What's your state of affairs as a business? How's your pricing models? Do you have control over your global, sales mechanisms, right? Because RC is a really complicated tool. It can deliver an incredible amount of power, but if you don't have a vision or strategic, go forward statement, it can be a hot mess, right?
Yeah.
So that's right. So that's for me, for a new customer, it's like, do you have your house in order?
Yes.
Right? And then if you do it. It'll advance your business in a heartbeat, right? I think the conversion path's a little more complicated. Okay. Can I bounce that to you?
We're still in net new.
Yeah, right.
We're still on that new. So
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
talking about if you're on spreadsheets, moving to RCA, or if you're on maybe on another platform, moving to RCA. I do think that those are slightly different topics if you're
They
moving
are.
from spreadsheets
Yeah.
to RCA versus another platform to RCA, because it talks to your
Complexity is very different.
well, it talks to your maturity in the quote to cash space,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
I think those who have been through a CPQ project know what that means, and those who are still in spreadsheets have to learn that, have to yet learn that. But I would say that the big thing for if you're moving on to RCA for the first time, not on Revenue Cloud, is take this opportunity to actually get your house in order. I agree with that, but it's look at it as a digital transformation. It really is. There's so much more than just quotes. This is just more than a quoting tool. This is a revenue platform, and so a lot of people just go, oh, I have this Excel spreadsheet over here. Let's replicate it, and we'll get a ton of value by just moving to the cloud. Well, there's so much more to that. It's really what I talk about as like the center spoke of that wheel that turns the whole wheel. So
Yeah.
everybody's touch points, everybody's viewpoints, and getting your house in order is a really important step. And I also think that's true for those who are moving from CPQ to RCA as well. So we'll get there.
Yeah, if we look back at the CPQ product failures, most of them boils down to product and pricing. How do you structure the products and messed up, and you have so many failures. Success rate, I think failure rate is more than 60%, I guess, for the CPQ. So RCA is new technology, new possibilities, but the underlying things, as you mentioned, is the same. Make the how do you define the products and structure it? That's the most key aspect of it. Or else you'll have, instead of 10 products, you'll have 100 products of different variations. You're not using the attributes, and all of these are there, and you're now in a different fashion, but still the structure and catalog, more possibilities are there. So that's the key thing, and the fundamentals are not changing. Now more scope to kind of extend and do that. Right? So back to basics, products and pricing set in order, then everything will fall in place.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. With everything, I agree with everyone on everything. No, so what I would always say, what I would say now, I've said this for a while, and it's maybe more true now than ever before, is you should dream big and you should prioritize ruthlessly. So there's so many interesting, creative, value-added things you can think through in your vision and think ahead, but you will never ever achieve any of them if you don't start with fundamentals, if you don't prioritize for your time. If you have to hit your deadlines, you have to deliver that value early and often, and then you can set yourself up, get your data on the platform. That opens up so much value. That's probably a little bit more important than some user experience thing that you would have to customize that somebody really wants right now. That's going to be available in the next release, or in at least in the 3 release roadmap. So start with fundamentals and you'll be successful.
Can
And
you
then
say that again so we can all get
That was a great
For
quote.
the
by
people
way.
in the back.
It really is.
I blacked out. I don't know what I said.
Too much more wine for you.
And
You
repeat.
said dream big.
So dream big and prioritize ruthlessly.
Bravo, bravo. There's a lot of wisdom in that statement. You briefly touched on, I'm going to lean into it a little bit more. Have a domain expert in the room. Somebody who has delivered these types of projects more than once in their lives. Ideally, many times. They've seen this shit before. They've done this before.
Do we
They've
cuss
seen
on
it
the
all.
podcast? Do we-
What, you want me to plug
I was
Pierce
trying.
Washington again? Pierce Washington, Executive Suite at Dreamforce?
I was trying not to earlier.
According to
Now,
that,
obviously, I'm super biased.
No, you didn't.
Okay.
I'm super biased because I'm a
It's
consultant.
always
This is, we live and breathe this stuff as consultants, right? This is our thing. We would love for you to give us your money. Please give us your money. We want it, all of it. Well, not all of it. You gotta, you know. But as consultants, we would love to help you through this. However, there are customers who have done this before. I've worked with some clients where their primary product owner, business stakeholder is phenomenal. We know who I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
We've worked with them in the past.
Yeah.
One of the best clients, most knowledgeable quote to cash people I've ever worked with. Find that person. It doesn't have to be a consultant, though it can help. But find somebody who's done this before and knows all the people and all the processes that need to be involved in this. And the second piece that I would offer is have the hard conversations early so you don't have to have them later. You will save yourself so much time if you just argue right now than if you're arguing 2 weeks before go live.
That's right.
Yeah.
100% agree.
I would like to just add on one thing to that. A tip for customers is that if there is something in your head that you are not sure that the software can support, say that earlier and see it as soon as you possibly can.
Yes.
Yes. Say it to your architect so that you don't get to the end of the project and you go, oh, well, we have this thing that we sell all the time that requires 8,000 quote lines. And then it doesn't get discussed, right? Exactly. You don't want
That's
to.
nothing now.
So
15,000 lines.
Oh, we wanted to have a Heroku conversation. I can't do that right now.
So the piece of advice as a customer, if there is something that you are concerned about, say it early in the process so that your architects, your consultants can help you solve that business case.
Absolutely right, 100%. Just stay true to the project and be transparent with each other. Have conversations, talk to each other. Everybody in this room, everybody I know who I work for a living with, we are trying to help you.
Yeah.
No one's trying to not help you.
Yeah.
Right? So just have the conversation. And sometimes bad news is bad news, but at least you're having the conversation. That's my #1 advice for any program.
Okay, let's sharpen the focus a little bit more. Now we're specifically talking to you, Steelbrick customer. You've been on this product for a long time in the past. I know you. We probably met before. You've watched this channel before. You might have watched my videos on how to use a Salesforce CPQ price rule. I'll zoom in. I'll just get you right here. You've built price rules before. You know what this shit's about. Okay, and you're thinking about Revenue Cloud, and you heard the announcement, right? It shot heard around the world. End of sales, Salesforce CPQ, and you're thinking, what am I gonna do?
We just went from PG-13 to R.
This is how I roll, Theo. This is how I roll.
Someone used that word earlier, but I wasn't allowed to.
YouTube's gonna yell at me. We got bleeps.
Courtney can bleep that out.
Yeah.
I should bleep it, but like just off, so you still hear it, but there's a bleep on one side or the other.
You're
Anyway.
doing great.
Okay. Pierce Washington, Executive Suite at Dreamforce. Okay, you probably have a nightmare on your hands. You have a lot of customizations. You've got a lot of data. Some of it's probably good. Some of it might not be so good. You've got complicated processes. You're doing business differently now than you did 5 years ago, 10 years ago when you implemented. Some customers have implemented sooner. I've got a client that's actively continuing to roll out CPQ releases for the different product lines. What should you think about? I would say I'll start. My first piece of advice would be step 1, calm down. You're fine. You're fine. You've got time.
Don't tell me to calm down, John.
Well, you stay anxious. Everyone
Don't
else.
tell me what to do.
You have more time than you think, and I encourage you to build as much roadmap as you can, which means, in some cases, renewing CPQ for another whatever period of time when you're up for renewal. Buy yourself runway. Plus, I'm sure you can talk to folks like Greg to see what you can do about the contractual side of things. Talk to your Salesforce account executive about pricing and contracts, not me. I am absolving myself of that responsibility. But buy yourself some time. You have time. Buy yourself some time. And in some cases, you may want to go now. You're going, CPQ's already a mess, or we're fairly out of the box. And we could actually cut over right now. Great, do it. Maybe you're going, oh, it would be too rushed. I don't know. Cool. Extend your contract, buy yourself some runway, and then figure out a plan. 18 to 24 month roadmap. If you need help, talk to a consultant. Hire an internal resource who's going to own this over the next 3 to 5 years, whatever. And get yourself that runway. And I would say, regardless of what you want to do, and maybe you end up picking a different platform. I think Revenue Cloud is probably the move for most of you, but you want to prepare regardless. You're gonna have to do something eventually. The earlier you start that process, the more strategic and thoughtful you are now, the calmer and less stressed you'll be later. So,
Amen.
planning and strategy and thoughtfulness. We want to do this calm, folks. We're going to sip some wine during UAT because there won't be anything to do. We're just going to be sitting here. All of our test cases will be solved. We're not going to have any bugs. Everything's going to be flawless. I'm going to pass it now because clearly I need more wine.
So I'll say a couple of things. First and foremost, we are end of sale, but we have some very creative packaging. We are not putting a gun to anyone's head and saying you have to migrate by this time. So I echo John's sentiment there.
Thank you.
And talk to your Revenue Cloud account executive or your core account executive, because we also have very creative contract arrangements that allow you to own both products, so that while you run CPQ, you can get up to speed, you can prototype, you can do all the things that you can go at your pace, and we're giving you a lot to mitigate the risk of making the eventual migration. That's number one. Number two, I mentioned I was in a lot of customer calls this week, and when I wasn't with customers, I was with partners. And the tooling that's out there to enable the migration, right? To actually enable the migration, but even before that, to be able to assess what it's going to take to make the migration. Now, we always talk about the lift and shift, and we advise against doing that, because you might as well take this opportunity to rethink and reimagine processes where you know they need to improve. But there is tooling that will allow you to assess the level of effort, and every consultant in this room can contribute to that to make the path more clear, and it just takes dialogue.
Okay. And I'll add to that too, from an architect perspective, if you are a current SteelBrick customer, you are already at least 80% of the way there by describing your business to us. So me coming from a SteelBrick background, I can look at your SteelBrick configuration and see what you have there. And instead of just starting with, oh, what do you sell? And then you have to explain your entire business to me. Okay, well, is it a subscription? Do we create an asset? Is it a subscribed asset? How does your business work? How does the pricing work? Instead of getting into all of the details and spending time and money understanding your business, you're already live with SteelBrick. So we can have a different conversation, which is more like, look, I analyzed your SteelBrick implementation. I see how exactly you're pricing this product. Is that how you want to continue to price it? Or is there some initiative to price it in a different way? And then we can talk from a baseline of, I already understand how your business is working today. How do you want it to work in the future? Because I speak SteelBrick. So if you can just open up your SteelBrick implementation, that is a language that I speak, and then I can come to the table with a real understanding of your business already. And again, we're 80% of the way there,
Yeah, it's an opportunity to reevaluate and make sure, again, this you won't get this kind of opportunity basically to reassess and just check it and take that lessons and re-implement, because a lot of mistakes might have been made in the previous implementations. Typically you don't get an opportunity, but it's a God's grace. You feel that way and just try to reorient and go for a new look, and things have changed and times are changing, and incorporate AI and then figure it out and go with a better implementation.
I think to me there's a lot of potential reasons to make that move, and I think you've got to get first clear with why you're doing it. I think I've worked with a lot of organizations that pushed and pulled on Steelbrick, Salesforce CPQ to get it to do what basic things that are core to their business model that it just was never intended to do, and are key motivators behind creating RCA. A lot of them are the self-service stuff, like that's why subscription management was created, and that served as the groundwork for what is now ARM. And so I think you've got to be clear with what's the value that you're going to get from that move. I think, like Greg was getting at, there's creative ways to make the pricing and the commercials behind that shift work out. I mean, it's not like you're just all of a sudden going to juice up your licensing cost by making that shift. There's obviously an investment in the services piece, but I think you've got to be really clear, both from an internal charter perspective and from a business value perspective, to get the buy-in from your business, from your executive stakeholders, as to why you're making that move. Like, it's not a end of support, it's end of sale for new customers. So it's not like you have to just switch over. So when you do it matters, and there are maybe urgent business like there may be omni-channel use cases that you just flat out can't support right now. That's a huge driver. Prioritize those you can support with the right impact analysis and strategic approach. You can support both in the same org. I've got an active customer right now that's doing that, and they're starting with part of their business that was not well suited at all for CPQ. We'll start there, and then there's a whole other part of the business that's going to continue using CPQ because it's got a much larger functional transformation that needs to take place. But they can get value out of RCA, ARM, RevCloud, RevCloud now, or whatever. They can get value out of that today.
For sure.
So start there, and be deliberate about how you're making that move. You don't have to just jump. And then I think for the organizations that are like, hey, CPQ, we finally got it serving what we need, and it's pretty solid. Great. You don't have an urgent driver to make that move. You don't need to do it arbitrarily. However, I think there's some corollaries with the introduction of Lightning from Classic, and that was what, 10, 11 years ago now. Yeah. I met with a prospect 2 weeks ago that's on Classic. Huge organization still using Classic. They're gonna pry that from their cold dead hands probably. And so there will be organizations like that, but then we talked to them, like, do you not see all of the really intuitive things you can do with Lightning? Like, there are drivers, there may be real value added reasons to make that shift, even if or even though you may, even after a lot of investment in time, brain power, finally have CPQ working properly. So I would say start with the value, and be clear, establish a charter internally as to why you're making that move, and it'll be worth it.
Hey!
Oh,
this guy!
I brought the king of revenue cloud.
Oh, man.
How's it going? Good to see you.
I love your t-shirt, bro.
What's that?
I love your t-shirt, man. It's fantastic.
Well said.
You know-
Boy, careful with the cables.
Yeah.
We don't wanna pull the camera off, but that'd be fun, wouldn't it? Most
Click.
exciting revenue cloud roundtable ever.
Yeah.
It's a very large roundtable.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just great. It's just
To add to what Micah was saying, I also feel that if they're, I think, early adopters of CPQ, Steelbrick CPQ, had to customize features that were missing, and so there's some technical debt there that now they're struggling with, and it has caused, pain and rigidity, and so if if you are looking to make a change to RCA, and you've got like use cases that may not currently be supported, I don't think you'll have to wait very long. The roadmap for RCA is like, it's pretty fast paced. So just give it a year, give it a little bit of time, and you can probably make the move with a lot less pain. You'll have the features that you need when you do make the move. So just be considerate of that as well.
Very much so.
I thought
totally agree with you.
Tiffany said something really interesting. If you've already gone through the process of defining pricing and packaging and your quote to cash process or your lead to cash process, you're in a much better position.
Yeah.
I almost wonder, and because I'm amongst lead to cash royalty here, it seems as though maybe we could take the documentation from the original implementation, ingest that into some AI, and
the records themselves.
and maybe create a blueprint for the move to
There's a
RCA.
lot of accelerate. Like I've been tinkering a lot with. So I'm just a small one-man shopish. There's a lot of larger.
He's very tall.
Dude.
Very
Yeah.
tall.
That's your own personal perception of yourself.
I didn't say I was short. I said no, they're like I'm like 80% through building something that's workable that will go crawl through your CPQ implementation and give you some like hard data points, give you some like key analysis out of it that will accelerate that process. I know there are other partners out there. I don't know, PW probably has something like that too. Shout out to Pierce Washington, who's hosted this in the executive suite. They have there's a lot of great tooling that is actively and aggressively being developed right now to support it, to accelerate how whoever is supporting you making that transition can evaluate what you have today, and can give you insights into how you're going to cut over and how quickly you can do that. And then from there, it's a matter of like how much more additional transformation do you have an appetite for, or makes sense, or can you benefit from?
Well, and
So-
I mean, I think you should really push yourself on that. If you like, it's a transformational moment,
Too much wine.
right?
More wine for you. More wine.
It's a wine indicator.
Another sip there, sir.
So if you're gonna translate your product catalog and your pricing models into a new tool, it's a chance for the business to stand back and be like, what are we selling and why are we selling it this way, right? And I think that's a really important thing. Needs to be part of that kind of implementation, for sure.
Yeah.
Because it's not a lift and shift, and so it's an opportunity to actually get better,
Yeah.
right, as a business. And I think that's really part of it's also part of the value driver too. If you're gonna take all that effort to like transform yourself into different technology, why? Well, that's one of the reasons why. New product models, new selling models, new pricing models, like the whole thing,
It's the
right?
next step of maturity.
Yeah.
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 I'll pick it up on a couple things you guys have said as well. I think it's going to be a natural assumption that every person moving from CPQ to RCA will run them in parallel for some period of time.
Yes.
And I think when we work with our clients, we really help them build a cutover strategy that meets their needs. Now that can be sliced and diced in a million different ways, right? You could slice by region, you could slice by business group, you could even go, by specific, currency or language and roll it out in a different way. And so I think that's really important. And I think that there is a lot of synergy. Like you guys said, wow, there's products already loaded in the product catalog. Okay, maybe they're not in the product catalog management, but they're in the product 2 records. So there's a lot there that we have to work with. We have some customers that are looking at running them side by side, but I would just say maybe like at a technical level too, there are some collision points to look at, right?
Yes.
So like, Steelbrick did its best job of using custom standard objects, but of course was on a managed package. So, things like contracts, subscriptions, even the SBQQ quote, right, is all custom. But they leverage standard objects like the product 2 records, the orders, even the assets, even though Steelbrick split up one time in subscriptions, its assets are a common object. And so I think there are some points to be very critical about. But you don't always have to start with order management either, right? You can go quoting to contracts. So Some of the biggest collision points to focus on, at least that I've seen in those migrations, are the assets, are the subscriptions. Every project inherently has a data migration, and it always will ring true for other CPQ projects. But I do think that this one is unique because in other historical data migration projects, we've typically been taking like asset data from another system or a spreadsheet and loading it into Salesforce. And this is a really unique opportunity where we actually have all the data in Salesforce. And so does that mean you transform it into the RCA world? Does that mean, we might update the ARC flows to read from the subscription? There's a lot of different ways to do this now because it's all on Salesforce and we have the core automations to handle it. So I think that opens up a couple new avenues on how we approach that data migration, whether you do it as like a massive big bang or as we do that cutover strategy, maybe we take tranches of subscriptions and move them over. So I think that opens up a lot of new ways of thinking about how to run them in parallel, how to cut over, because all the data's on platform and we have some of the data already there in these standard objects. So a lot to do. Help move all these people over.
You said one more question and we all had an opinion.
Yeah. Are there more opinions that we need to share? I'm just going to call out John Bishop from Pierce. Hey, John, where do you work, by the way?
I work at Pierce, Washington.
Pierce, I think you just said Pierce, Washington. Was that correct? Pierce, Washington? Okay, great. Fun fact. This is the Pierce Washington Executive Suite at Dreamforce 2025. By the way, John, can you... Also, we need to know a fun fact about you that's not work-related.
Fun fact.
Did you know that Lerkine plays the harpsichord and was in harpsichord competitions? Did you know that Jessica wants to be an archaeologist and is going to the UK next week to dig for dinosaurs?
No, I pinned that for him. That makes sense. Let's say I have. Let's see, I'm an avid collector of shoes.
Of shoes?
Of shoes for fashion, as well as just collecting them. I started with a collection of Beanie Babies when I was very young. Over to also include shoes. No, I don't have the Beanie Babies anymore. But outside of that, I am also an avid drone.
Those are pretty fancy shoes.
These are just new walking shoes. I am an avid drone flyer. I have 4 drones. Primarily just photography drones. And I do have one FPV drone. Fun little side hobby.
FPV?
First person view.
With the goggles.
With the goggles.
And expert in mid-journey.
So
We're gonna. I am also a connoisseur of AI imagery, of turning myself into multiple.
And you can buy his calendar for $12.99.
Yes,
That's fantastic. So, John, we're going to need you to answer all the questions we just
for
answered.
work version calendar. Yes.
I saw his talent yesterday.
It was hilarious. That was fun. We're going to need to know your answer to all the questions we just discussed, except I'm not going to give you them.
Okay. Yes.
Key Dreamforce takeaways: advice to net new net new Revenue Cloud customers, and then advice to customers cutting over from CPQ Go.
Oh man. Oh geez. I'll take the last 2.
Okay.
Advice to new customers and any cutover. I'm sure you guys have talked about the technical side
Yes.
of what's going to be need to transfer over, but what about like the administration side?
Ooh.
So.
What you mean?
So typical or administrators who are used to Steelbrick CPQ are going to find themselves in a world of change when it comes to RCA. Yes, it does leverage some of the standard objects, but how you go about creating a product, a bundle, so forth is completely different.
Wildly different.
Just
Really
from the object
cool.
model, it's very different, but it's very flexible. But there is an additive flair of some development knowledge that's going to be needed. So you're not kind of pushing away from your click in standard configuration mode to go into more custom. When you look at product rules or constraint rules now, that
It
are
will
on
become
CLM.
more declarative over time.
Yes.
But at least right now.
CML. CML.
Don't worry, we had that conversation.
Yeah, we can
earlier.
edit that one out. Yes. But that is, I think that's going to be the biggest change. I think that was just from my personal take when I was starting to architect this and go into my first project was, holy crap, this is completely different and it's not what I expected, and I had to make myself, I had to change my way of thinking, approaching the product.
Yeah. And for existing CPQ customers migrating over.
No.
You got it on the end of Dreamforce.
Brace yourselves. Winter is coming. All right.
Wrap it up.
Pierce Washington, Executive Suite, Dreamforce 2025.
No. I mean, just be prepared. Be prepared to change. Don't, there's a term that some of us like to use at Pierce Washington, which is Sally. Don't take the same as last year approach. This is maybe on platform, but it is, again, a whole completely different object model. It's going to change your processes. This is going to be a chance for you to change how you operate today. It's not what worked for you in CPQ is not going to be an instant fit into RCA. So go with an open mind and
That's
be
great.
ready for change.
Yeah.
Awesome.
On that note, we have wine to drink and chips to eat here at the Pierce Washington Executive Suite at Dreamforce 2025.
Pierce Washington!
Thank you for the wine. Thank you for the chips. Thank you for your attention. Reach out to any of us for help with this. We're all in this together. We're all out to create the best product in the world. We'll talk to you next time. Have a good day.
Toodles.
Peace.
Right.
That's that.
Nice.
Mic drop.
Wonderful. That was great.
Hey, man, good to see you as well.
Good conversation.
Yeah.
Very nice.
It was so
Thanks a lot for
interesting.
being, I really enjoyed being part of that.
Yeah,
That was awesome.
it's fun. Like, isn't it? It's nice to be around people who get it.
Drink wine and share.
Yeah.
Cool.
More wine, the conversational skids get greased, and you just keep going.
Oh, good. It's great.
We stopped recording before we all get in trouble.
Thank you both, you two.
I think it was pretty good.
It's
What?
really good.
I think it was a pretty good take.
Helped me
Oh,
with my
nice.
lines, right?
Okay.
That's a wrap.